In the previous session, we have discussed all about what is research, what are the purpose of research, what is the objective of research in much detail. Now, we will move on to the next topic, and that is types of research. There are different types of research. We will distinguish 8 different types of research. We will distinguish in 4 different categories. Descriptive research versus analytical research. Of course, we have discussed in brief about what is descriptive research. We will just do the comparison of descriptive versus analytical research, applied versus fundamental research, quantitative versus qualitative research, conceptual versus empirical research. So 8 different types of research studies we will discuss in detail one by one. To start with, first is descriptive research versus analytical research. How descriptive research is different from the analytical research we will discuss. Descriptive research is the research which describes the current state of a variable or condition. It describes the state of affairs as it exists. It describes a situation or a group or an individual as it is, as it exists right now. It basically studies what is happening right now or what has happened earlier. That will be studied with the help of descriptive research. It focuses on observing and recording the data. It focuses on observing the data and recording the data. And when we talk about the analysis is very minimal in case of descriptive research, but it basically focuses on description of a situation, describing the characteristics of a particular situation, group or an individual. Detailed description of the subject is carried out in case of descriptive research. So when we talk about descriptive research, it aims at answering various questions, like it can answer what, when, where, how, when, etc. about a particular subject. It will not identify why aspects about a particular subject. When we want to think about why aspects, then analytical research is used. So the various methods used in descriptive research are fact-finding inquiries of different type, surveys of different type. Different types of surveys are used, like personal interview or telephone survey, mail survey, internet survey, or else observations are used. Again, in observations there are different types of observation: mechanical observation or manual observation, participative observation or non-participative observation, etc. So these all are the different types of observation. Just by observing the activities of the people, lot of information will be gathered. So that is what called as observation. Sometimes case study method is also used for conducting the descriptive research. A case or a situation is taken, thorough analysis will be made out of that and conclusions will be drawn. So that is what called as case study method. So these all are the different techniques which are used in descriptive research. When we talk about the examples of descriptive research, like shopping preferences of the people, what are the preferences of the people, what type of shops they prefer to shop in, or else buying motives, what motivates people to buy a particular product, what all are the factors influencing their decision making or buying process, that is thoroughly studied. Opinion survey, opinion of people towards a particular product, or attitudinal survey is another example of descriptive research. The survey which is carried out to know the attitude of people towards a particular product, or perception of the people, how people perceive things around them, how people perceive a particular brand or a product. All these are several examples of the descriptive research. In simple terms, descriptive research, it basically aims at describing the characteristics of an individual, group or a situation. It just studies what is happening now or what has happened earlier. One more characteristics of descriptive research is that researcher has no control over the variables. He can just study what is happening with people or group of people, or what is happening with a particular organization. And there is nothing beyond in the control of the researcher. He will just study what he will just observe, he will just go on recording the things. So that is what the characteristics of a descriptive research. Now we will talk about analytical research. Analytical research is basically carried out to understand or explain why and how certain phenomena occurs, why a particular phenomena occurs and how it has occurred. As I have said, descriptive research, it deals with who, what, when, where, how aspects. But whereas, who, what, where, when and where aspects. But whereas analytical research, it tries to understand or explain why a particular situation has occurred and how it has occurred. What made the situation to occur. Such an analysis will be carried out in analytical research. It aims at analyzing data and interpreting the data. Thorough analysis is made, huge data is gathered, systematically it is processed, analyzed and conclusions will be drawn out of that data. So that is what the analytical research. When we talk about the methods or techniques used in analytical research, in-depth interviews are used. Focused group sessions, the in-depth interview or in-depth data is gathered. Detailed data is gathered and the basic focus is on understanding the relationships and identifying the association between the relationship. It aims at finding the cause and effect relationship between the variables. It obtains insights. It goes deeper into the subject matter, thorough data collection will be made, analysis is done and new issues or new insights into the subject matter will be obtained. It aims at explaining the relationships, understanding the relationships and explaining the relationship between the variable. Many statistical tools are used for data analysis like regression analysis, correlation analysis, F-test, Z-test, T-test, etc. So depending upon the nature of the problem and depending upon the objectives of the study, different statistical tools are used for analysis of such a data. And analytical research, it aims at testing of hypothesis. The various examples of analytical research are sales analysis and market analysis. In order to carry out the sales analysis, existing sales records of the company, secondary data is also taken into consideration and thorough field investigation is also made. Sample set of respondents will be chosen and sales information will be gathered from them and thorough analysis is made like why sales are increasing or why sales are decreasing. Thorough analysis of the sales of a particular company or for a particular product or brand will be carried out. One more example of analytical research is market analysis, studying the trends in the marketplace, studying the customers, studying the competitors, studying the government, etc. Thorough analysis of the market, studying the suppliers, studying the intermediaries, many aspects will be studied thoroughly with the help of such a study. So these all are examples of the analytical research. With this, we just got the distinction between what is descriptive research and what is analytical research. Next, we will discuss the difference between applied research versus fundamental research. Applied research is also termed as action research, whereas fundamental research is also termed as basic research or pure research, because fundamental research studies are carried out in basic sciences or in pure sciences, such as in the field of mathematics or in the field of chemistry or in the field of physics, etc. So such studies are called as fundamental research studies or basic research studies. We will discuss in detail what is the difference between applied and fundamental research. Applied research, it aims at finding a solution for an immediate problem facing a society or an industrial unit or a business organization. The research which is carried out to find solution for immediate problem facing a society or an organization or an industry. To solve such societal issues in the society or the problem faced by the business organization, research studies are termed as applied research studies. Applied research studies are limited to specific cases. Such type of studies are basically carried out when some specific situation occurs within the organization, and to resolve that specific problem, applied research study will be carried out. It is called as action research. On the basis of some practical problem pressing a society or pressing an individual or pressing an organization, the study is carried out. So such research studies are called as applied research studies or the action research studies. The various examples of applied research are the research to identify social trends, economic trends, political trends, social, economic or political trends that may affect a particular institution. How these trends are impacting the working of an organization. If a study is carried out to know that, then such studies are called as applied research studies. Or if a study is carried out to know how the COVID has impacted the retail sector, such a study is called as action research. So only for that instance the study is carried out and conclusions are drawn. So such studies are called as action research studies or the applied research studies. When we take marketing examples or business examples of applied research, copy research. Copy research is a research which is carried out to test the advertising copy. The research which is carried out to know whether certain communications will be read and understood properly or not. You know, before launching any advertisement, rough copy of the advertisement will be tested among a small set of respondents. Whether the advertisement copy is conveying the intended message to the target audiences or not, whether it is clear or not, whether people are taking it in a positive way or not, whether people are taking it in an intended way or not. If a research is carried out to know that, then such a research is called as copy research. Copy research. Yeah. So this is all about the applied research. Now we'll talk about the fundamental research. Fundamental research studies are mainly concerned with generalizations and with formulation of a theory. They aim at making generalizations and they aim at formulation of a theory. Either they are used for formulation of new theories or modifying or reinterpreting the existing theories. This is what the basic thing, you know, in mathematics and all, lot of research is carried out to come out with a postulate, to come out with a theorem, to come out with a formulae. So such studies are called as fundamental research studies. They aim at making generalizations or formulation of a theory. It can be generalized and applied to more than one case. Applied research is only applicable to the situation for which it is carried out, whereas fundamental research studies are applicable to many number of cases. And such type of studies are termed as gathering knowledge for knowledge's sake. The knowledge is gathered just for the sake of knowledge. And the various examples are research concerning some natural phenomenon or relating to pure mathematics. Studies carried out with a view to make generalization about human behavior. Like if a study is carried out to know why people they behave in a particular manner, why people behave so. One best example of fundamental research I'll just give you about Maslow's need hierarchy theory. Maslow, he has come out with a theory called as need hierarchy theory. How there are different levels of needs of a human being. You know, Abraham Maslow, he was a psychoanalyst. So he conducted a study and he has come out with that theory called as need hierarchy theory. How the needs and desires of the people will change from one level to the other level. So that is being depicted with the help of a beautiful framework called as Maslow's need hierarchy. So that is the example of a fundamental research. If further research is carried out to modify the existing theory of need hierarchy given by Abraham Maslow, and that is also called as fundamental research study because it aims at modifying the existing theories. Yeah. Now we'll talk about the distinction between quantitative research and qualitative research. Two more different types of research studies which are very popularly used in research: quantitative research and qualitative research. When we talk about quantitative research, it is based on measurement of quantity or amount. Any research which aims at measuring quantity or amount, the research which is carried out to measure in terms of the phenomena in terms of quantity like unit, volume, etc. Such studies are called as quantitative research studies. It is based on the measurement of quantity or amount and is applicable to the phenomena which can be expressed in terms of quantity. So these type of research studies are applicable only to the phenomena which can be quantified in terms of units, in time, in terms of numbers, in terms of volume, etc. So only for such situations quantitative research studies are carried out. An empirical research which is used to generate measurable data by employing statistical and logical techniques. So in order to collect quantitative research, lot of statistical techniques will be used and logical techniques will be used for collection of the data. When we talk about experimental research, that is a kind of quantitative research which gathers lot of empirical data with the help of statistical tools, analysis is made and conclusions will be drawn. They quantify the data. It deals with, quantitative research deals with hard facts and statistical data, the data which can be measured and data which can be quantified. So the various examples of quantitative research studies are studies to find out the credit card transactions in Bangalore, or else if you are studying, if a study is carried out to know how many people are literates and illiterates in Karnataka, and then such a study is called as quantitative research study. How many people they own car in Karnataka? If a study is carried out to know this, then that is called as quantitative research. Now we will talk about qualitative research. It is concerned with qualitative phenomenon or the phenomenon which is relating to or involving quality or kind. In other words, qualitative research is a research which aims at collecting qualitative data, the data which is in the form of attitude, perceptions, opinion, satisfaction, which cannot be quantified. Like for example, when you talk about the attitude of the people, we cannot quantify how much attitude they have. We cannot quantify or measure satisfaction. We cannot quantify the perceptions of the people. So all such inner feelings or hidden feelings of the respondents or the customers can be studied with the help of qualitative research studies. Of course, there are techniques for collecting such data also, and analysis is also done, but this is what the qualitative research. An inquiry which is conducted to develop insight into a human behavior. How people behave, why they behave so. What are the buying motives of the customers? The best example of qualitative research study is motivational research. Studying the buying motives of the customer, why people buy a certain particular product. In order to collect this information, lot of projective techniques are used. There are different set of techniques which are available for collecting qualitative information, like word association test, sentence completion test, cartoon balloon test. So these all are the indirect methods of collecting the data. When people they are not willing to reveal that data directly, indirect methods are used for collecting the qualitative information. So such type of research, it basically deals with feelings, attitudes, opinion and thoughts of human beings. Examples are motivational research studies, attitudinal survey, opinion research studies, willingness survey, etc. So these all are the various examples of the qualitative research. Of course, in any type of study, both combination of qualitative and quantitative research will be done. Then the fourth categorization, conceptual research versus empirical research. First we will talk about what is conceptual research. The research which is related to some abstract idea or theory. Research which is related to or which is based on some abstract idea or theory, such research studies are called as conceptual research studies. Such type of studies, they does not involve conducting any practical experiments. There is no experimentation conducted in case of conceptual research studies. They are purely based on existing theories or postulates or some abstract ideas. Experimentation is not a requirement in case of conceptual research. It is based on just observing the data and analyzing existing concepts and theories. Existing concepts and theories will be taken into consideration and observing those theories will be done and some conclusions will be drawn. It is generally used by philosophers and thinkers to develop new concepts or to reinterpret the existing concepts. You know, most of the times even in marketing area, a lot of theories are there. Like when you take example of a marketing concept or marketing theory, marketing concepts, new concepts are coming, like societal marketing concept is a new concept, holistic marketing is again a new concept. Existing concepts will be taken into consideration and new concepts will be developed by thoroughly analyzing or observing the existing concepts. The various examples of conceptual research studies are exploring key factors that influence consumer behavior in the online shopping environment. When a study is carried out to know the factors influencing the consumer buying behavior in online shopping environment, then that is example of a conceptual research. It involves reviewing existing literature on consumer behavior. A lot of literature is available on the consumer behavior. From the journals, articles will be taken and thorough analysis of the consumer behavior will be done. And sometimes even researchers, they examine the different theories and models pertaining to consumer behavior. And at last, they develop a conceptual framework on the basis of such analysis or observation. So such research studies are termed as conceptual research studies. Now we'll talk about empirical research. The research which relies on experience, the research which purely relies on the research which relies on experience or observation alone, often without due regard for system and theory. Such studies do not rely on system, concepts and theories, but rather they rely purely on evidences, and hence such type of studies are called as data-based research studies or evidence-based research studies. They aim at collecting fresh information. Fresh information is gathered, thorough analysis is made, hypothesis is tested and conclusions will be drawn. So such studies are called as empirical research studies, data-based research studies or experimental research studies. You know, such studies are carried out in a very controlled setup. In such a research, it is necessary to get the facts at first hand from the source. First hand information is gathered and they actively analyze the data to produce desired information. The researcher must first develop a working hypothesis. In this kind of studies, they first start with the development of working hypothesis or a guess for the probable results, and then they collect enough data from various sources, analyze that data and test the hypothesis. They prove or disprove the stated hypothesis. So this is all about the experimental research or empirical research. Next is we'll talk about in detail exploratory research. What exploratory research is, what are the characteristics of exploratory research and the circumstances in which exploratory research is used. Exploratory research is used to gain deeper understanding of the issue or problem that is troubling the decision maker. As I've said, these studies are basically used for formulation of research problem and formulation of a working hypothesis to gain deeper understanding of a situation, of a problem or of an issue. Then exploratory research studies are carried out. They are usually qualitative in nature. Qualitative, we have discussed already what is quantitative and qualitative research. They are mostly qualitative in nature and they are primary in nature. Primary in the sense fresh hand information is gathered from the marketplace. The various methods used in exploratory research are literature survey, survey of the existing literature. It could be the articles in the journals, magazines, newspapers or publications such as government publications or trade publications, books, etc. So, or sometimes even similar sort of research studies will also be taken into consideration. So, this is what the literature survey. Case studies. Most of the exploratory research studies, they follow a case study method. The case or a situation of a particular organization, of a particular individual will be taken, thorough analysis is made and they try to understand the root causes of the problem. That is what a case study method. Focus groups is another technique where 8 to 10 people will be called for a discussion. A topic of discussion will be given to them, and enumerator will be just observing how the discussion flows. On the basis of that, the problem, the nature of the problem will be understood. Depth interview. Depth interview is a technique wherein which the interview will last for more than 30 minutes. In detail, the probing will be done and detailed information will be gathered from the respondents. So, these all are the different methods which are used in exploratory research. The idea is to provide direction to subsequent and more structured and rigorous research. As I have already mentioned, the very purpose of exploratory research is to give direction to subsequent research studies. This is the fundamental research or the beginning research study which is carried out by every researcher. They first start with exploratory research, they define the problem, formulate the working hypothesis, and they give directions to descriptive research studies and experimental research studies. And hence, the idea is to provide direction to subsequent and more structured and rigorous research. Example is when a study carried out by a diet food company to find out what kind of snacks customers like to eat and generally where they buy healthy foods from. If a study is carried out to know this, then such a study is called as exploratory research study. Yeah. These all are the characteristics of exploratory research. It is, when we talk about the characteristics, exploratory research is highly flexible in nature. It does not follow any rigid structure or rigid pattern. Depending upon the situation, depending upon the nature of the problem, different set of questions will be asked, different method is used. So hence it varies from situation to situation. So thus exploratory research is flexible in nature and it is very versatile, not fixed, not permanent, it is varying, versatile. Structured forms are not used. In descriptive research and in experimental research, structured forms are used, like a standard questionnaire, which is circulated among group of respondents. The question pattern or the question format will remain same for all the respondents in case of descriptive research. But in case of exploratory research, it is not so. Structured forms are not used. Depending upon the responding capability of the respondents, the questions will be asked by the researcher. Any number of questions, probing questions. On the basis of the basic or initial question, further probing questions can also be asked until and unless the researcher comes out with or thoroughly analyzes the problem situation. So such a technique will be used. So hence it is what you call structured forms are not used here. It is highly interactive in nature. The researcher will always be interacting with the audiences or participants or the respondents in such type of studies, and it is mostly open-ended. No close-ended questions are asked, mostly open-ended questions will be asked. Open-ended in the sense there will be no right or wrong answer, free free responses will be given by the respondents to such questions. Such are called as open-ended questions. Experimentation is again not a requirement here. Experiments are not conducted, and when we talk about exploratory research, it is less expensive, less costly than descriptive research. The aim is basically to explore widely, wide exploration of views. Circumstances in which it is used. First is, it is used for gaining insight into the problem. To understand thoroughly the nature of the problem, exploratory research studies are carried out. To generate new product ideas, mostly for generating new product ideas, exploratory research studies are very useful. Sometimes they are also used for listing all the possibilities and prioritize the possibilities within the organization. And they are basically used for development of the hypothesis. Yeah. Conclusive research. Conclusive research is a research which is carried out to test and validate the study hypothesis. As the name itself indicates, conclusive research studies, they aim at drawing conclusions. Thorough data collection will happen, analysis will be made, and generalizations are made out of the data and conclusions will be drawn. They aim at testing of data and validation of the study. These studies are more structured, opposite of exploratory. They are well planned, pre-planned. All the steps will be well planned in advance by the researcher, and hence more structured, and they are very definite. Like what research design is very clearly mentioned in case of conclusive research study. Who are our target respondents, how we will be collecting the data, when we will be collecting the data, which techniques we use for data collection and analysis, how the data analysis will happen. Everything will be specified in detail in the conclusive research design, and hence it is more structured and definite. The variables and constructs are clearly defined. All the variables in the study and the constructs in the study will be clearly defined. We'll talk about what all are the variables. I think you are aware about the independent variables and the dependent variables. So what are our variables? What are the constructs which we come across our study? Everything will be defined very clearly in the conclusive research. And when we talk about the time frame of the study and respondent selection are more formal and representative. And the emphasis is on reliability of data and validity of data. When we talk about reliability, it talks about consistency of the data. How consistency are the results, or how valid are the results. Validity, it talks about accuracy of the research findings. These are the two things which are mainly focused in conclusive research studies. The emphasis is on reliability and validity of the research findings. And this is based on nature of the conclusive research studies. Different types of research studies will be carried out on the basis of nature of investigation required. Conclusive research can be further divided into two types: descriptive research and causal research. Let me highlight what is descriptive research. Descriptive research studies are more formalized studies. Already we have discussed in much detail about descriptive research. Let me briefly talk about what is descriptive. They are more formalized studies, typically structured with clearly stated hypothesis or investigative questions. Of course, descriptive research studies, they aim at formulation of research problem and development of working hypothesis, and on the basis of that, investigative questions or research questions will be framed by the researcher. Formal studies, they serve a variety of research objectives. They are the formal studies which serve all these purposes. One is description of the phenomenon or the characteristics associated with the subject population. It studies about who, what, when, where, and how aspects of a particular topic. It also aims at excuse me, estimating the proportion of a population that have these characteristics. Like for example, what proportion of people they own a car, and what proportion of people they does not own a car. If you are interested in estimating the proportion of population on certain characteristics, then descriptive research studies are more useful. They also discover association between the variables, which are called as correlational studies, identifying the relationship between two variables, whether the advertising expenses lead to more sales or not. If a study is carried out to collect this information, then they are called as correlational studies. Of course, these all are again few examples of descriptive research studies. A study to distinguish between the characteristics of customers who buy normal petrol and those who buy premium petrol, or a study which is carried out to know the level of involvement of middle level versus senior level managers in a company stock related decisions. Finally, we will discuss about the causal research. What a causal research is. This is second type of conclusive research which aims at discovering the effect of one variable over the other variable, or to know why certain outcomes are obtained. One basic difference between causal research and descriptive research is that causal research studies, they aim at finding cause and effect relationship between the variables, whereas descriptive research studies, they aim at finding association between the variables. They just identify whether these two variables are associated or not. What is the depth of relationship that is identified with the help of causal research study. These are highly structured compared to descriptive research studies. They are more formal studies, highly structured, and they require a rigid sequential approach to sampling, data collection and analysis. And this kind of research, like other research in pure sciences, requires experimentation to establish causality. In majority of the situations, it is quantitative in nature, which requires statistical testing of the information collected. I'll just give one example of the causal research. A fast food outlet currently selling vegetarian fare. What will be the impact on sales if the price of the vegetarian food is increased by 10%? If the study is carried out to know, like what increase in one variable lead to what change in the other variable? In general terms, when I say what change in one variable lead to what change in the other variable, if that is carried out, then such a study is called as cause and effect relationship study. Change in prices, whether that leads to change in the sales of a particular product or not. What change in advertising leads to what change in the sales of a particular product. If a study is carried out to know this, then such a study is called as causal research study. So with this, we have discussed the different types of research studies, and in particular, we have discussed what is exploratory and conclusive research study in detail. Thank you.